Hey everyone, welcome back to Sense. I'm Ben. It's Sunday, time to do Sunday sample. Hopefully gonna put out something much better this week because all week I've just been thinking, oh god, something good's gotta come out of this box for once. It's been a while since I've had something really good, I think. Okay, so same as always, I'm gonna stick my hand in, put out something random, and we're gonna give it a go. I might actually go with one of these because these are funny because I don't pull them out because they're like in a cardboard thing and I feel like I know what I'm going to be getting, but actually I don't. So this comes from Les Senteurs, which is a perfume shop in London, and it's just freebies. Like when you buy perfume from them, they just chuck it in. Ooh, okay, yeah, cool. So I have no idea what this is. This came when I bought a Killian fragrance from them. They sent me this one, and it's Frederic Malles Rose Cuir. Rose Cuir. Alright. So I'm guessing one of the notes in this is going to be rose, but otherwise I don't know this actually. No idea. Have absolutely zero idea what this is. So let's give it a crack. Oh, it's fresh. It's fresher than I was expecting. Because you hear rose and you think, well, that's going to be, you know, I don't know. I always assume roses are going to be kind of quite dark, but no, it's got this quite okay. It is a little darker. So it's got like a Turkish rose in there straight away. There's also some lamdaman or something. Definitely like a leathery sort of feel to it, and quite an earthy sort of feel to it. So it's got a little bit of kind of dark earthiness in there. I think that might even be cypriot oil. Like there's cypriot oil in here. So there's like some kind of dark earthiness in there that's quite dry. Feels like a kind of dry, earthy lamdaman and cypriot. So you've got that kind of slight earthy, dirty, leathery kind of vibe. But I wouldn't like, but that's how they're normally used. But in this is a little bit lighter, a little bit brighter. It's not, they're not like dominating. I notice them because I really like those kind of notes. But that's not what's dominating the fragrance. So let me talk about what it sort of feels like so far. This is interesting. So you've got this Turkish rose for sure, and that is like the kind of right at the top. It's really the main kind of note here. Underneath that, there's that kind of earthy, dirty, slight like kind of lamdaman, cypriot kind of earthy leather, like dirty earthy leather in there. There's something in the middle that's keeping it like slightly brighter than that's kind of bridging the gap between the rose and the darkness, and it's kind of bridging that gap, you know. And it's not a citrus. I think it's possibly another floral, but it's slightly sweet, and I wouldn't say citric, but it is using that same sort of thing that a citrus would be used for, or it's doing the same sort of thing that a citrus would be used for. So it's brightening the whole thing and kind of lifting it up slightly. It's not a lily, but maybe it's something like that, you know, like some sort of white blossom or something that's just kind of lifting it and sort of creating some kind of lift to it, and it's not making it feel too dark. It's nice, but that's about it. I don't really feel like there's much more to it right now, but I also feel like I'm not doing this justice. I feel like this is going to go places, and B, that it's possibly going to go quite complicated places, or places that like this feels a little bit more complex than what I'm making it. I mean, I'm only telling you what I smell, right? And what I personally smell, actually, there is like a kind of almost like a grapefruit sort of citrus in there now that seems to start sort of, it's just bleeding out around the edges. It reminds me a little bit of like something from Acqua di Parma actually, which is weird because obviously they're really citric, right? But the way the citruses smell in this, or that kind of brightness smells in this, reminds me a little bit of an Acqua di Parma. The middle is what's getting. I can't pick it. I don't know what it is. I'm gonna have to let it develop and come back to it. But the middle is interesting. It's going to be complicated, I think. I feel like maybe there's something like a heliotrope or like some sort of white blossom in there with that as well. And I also feel like there is some sort of citrus in here, but it's a really small player. But I believe that it's working with those kind of other kind of middle notes to kind of brighten the whole thing. But it's pleasant. I'm liking it. The rose is nice, which again, like I'm not. If you follow my channel, you know that I'm kind of fussy about roses. I'm not like a massive rose fan. I can be, but I'm quite picky. But this is really nice. The rose is changing actually now, and it's not smelling like a Turkish rose. It's starting to smell more like the rose in something like Gallivant London. It's starting to smell a bit more like that. When I first sprayed it, it smelled really like a kind of, it's still got that kind of slight Turkishy rose edge, but when I first sprayed it, it smelled really like a Turkish rose, but now it's smelling, is it like Rose de Mai maybe or something? It's starting to smell, I'm not actually sure, I don't really know the differences between roses that much, because it's just not a note that I really focus on that much in perfumery. But yeah, it's not, I will find out, but it's starting to feel a bit more. In fact, the whole fragrance is actually not a million miles away from Gallivant London, but it is also different. But it's got a lot of the same facets. It's got that kind of slight sort of dirty leather, and it's got a very similar rose, which I described as a Gallivant as quite dapper, kind of thick rose. It's not so much a Turkish rose. It's changed quite a bit. The middle is really developing. That middle's really developing. It's definitely, as a first like kind of impression, it's a good one, and it's complicated as well. So yeah, I mean, I'm going to wear this, and I'll come back and let you know my thoughts. It's going to be like, it's the evening already, but I'm going to wear it the whole evening. So you know, I'll let you know before I wash it off or whatever and get ready for bed what I think of it. Give him a full kind of, you know, hopefully then I would have got like 4 or 5 hours out of it. So yeah, nice one. See you soon. I'm back. So this is going to be a tough one. Frederic Malles Rose Cuir. Right, well, first of all, I found out that it's made by Jean-Claude Ellena, who's like one of my favourite perfumers. I had no idea he made this. This came out last year, apparently, 2019. And the notes are, dun dun dun, the mystery floral note, geranium, cassie, which I think was giving me that kind of citric fruity vibe, but more than that, it gives it a huge green vibe for that, which I thought was just part of the rose, but when you actually smell it, once you read that it's cassie and you actually sort of let it develop and you smell it, yeah, I can see that. There's apparently some pepper in there. I didn't get a lot of peppery spiciness, to be honest. The geranium, ginormous, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then in the middle, it's rose and leather, and the base cedar and vetiver, and actually a lot. So this is tough. Like, it's a really nice fragrance. I really enjoyed wearing this today, but it definitely has issues, and I definitely have some issues with it. So when I first sprayed it, I felt like it was a real Turkish rose, right? But then quite quickly it started changing and becoming less of a kind of Turkish rose, and losing that kind of Turkish edge and becoming greener, and I guess more kind of sort of, I don't know, sort of modern. And yeah, it started reminding me a little bit of Gallivant London, the rose in that. And I have to say, it stays like that. But the rose dies right back. But after about an hour, the rose is really not like a player in this fragrance. like anywhere near. It's definitely in it, but it's not one of the main players at all. And that kind of mystery floral that I was not really sure what it was, like, and it turns out it's a geranium. Like, okay, so it's a geranium. That takes over, and it's this like real green floral that sort of takes over. And the rose just sits below that. The saddest part is that a lot of that leather falls off, like completely falls off. At first it was really strong, but after about half an hour to an hour, it falls completely off. And at first it's like it leaves faint traces for a while, but it's not long, and then it's gone, and then you don't really get any more leather. And instead you get this quite grassy, watery rose and geranium scent, or sort of like rose and floral scent. I guess it is geranium. For me, I didn't really know that. I just it smelled like a floral, but yeah, I mean the greenness coming from the cassie there makes that kind of rose feel like a very green rose, and the whole scent, it gives it like a really kind of like underpin of like a green kind of vibe, sort of grassy, grassiness, and it's quite watery, and there's a couple of things sprang to mind, and one of them is really interesting actually, or not interesting, but just kind of like weird. But the first one is that this does definitely remind me a lot of Gallivant, London, because London had that dirty leather, that kind of modern, sharp, clean rose, and that kind of watery sort of, I think they class it as cucumber, and then in the abstract they sort of said it was like, you know, the rainwater from London and all that. So it kind of reminds me a lot of Gallivant London. What I would say is Gallivant London is much better. The leather lasts longer, the rose lasts longer, the fragrance profile in general is better. So that's, I would say, it's like, for what I've smelt, like its main contender, and it's failed. But it also really reminded me, and this is really weird because just last week we were talking about the Jardin line, right? And I did that video about the introduction to Hermès Jardin, and it really reminded me of un Jardin sur le Toit. Once I found out it was Jean-Claude Eleanor, it kind of just was like, oh, like it, bang, like that. So maybe there's a bit of an association in there that's kind of a trick, but I don't think so. Like, as soon as I read like Jean-Claude Eleanor, it was like, yeah, of course, like this smells like, and then I was like, which one is it? So I went and got my Jardins again and was spraying them, and it's in Jardin sur le Toit. It reminds me a little of that. It's not the same, and it is quite different, but you can smell that they're both got some similar aspects that cross over, especially in that rose and geranium. I believe it's like a different floral in Jardin sur le Toit. It's rose and magnolia, I think. But yeah, it's got that similar kind of rose, that sharp, modern, slightly watery green rose, and they kind of cross over. So yeah, it reminded me a little of that. It's got that kind of watery, dewy, aqueous kind of wetness about it. Again, like the Jardin lines. So it really reminded me of that. So that was weird, because only last week did I even make a video about those. So yeah, that was weird. And that kind of leads me to what I think about it in general, right? So the longevity is fine. I mean, it's still trucking, but it's very different to when I first sprayed it. And when I first sprayed it, it was very much better. And I don't think it really dries down very well. Like, a lot of the interest and the good notes in it vanish. So the leather just disappears. All that dark, dirty, mysterious earthiness that's in there, and that kind of the leather, it just gradually fades until it's gone. Which is, I mean, after that, there's little here for me, to be honest. And the rose drops right back, and the geranium just sort of keeps growing with this kind of green, watery vibe. The cedar and vetiver, I didn't really feel a lot of that either. I didn't really feel like there's any kind of woodiness in this. You could say it's maybe a hint of that kind of earthiness maybe was coming from the vetiver, but unlikely. So yeah, I didn't really feel like that was really there that much. It does have a slight hand soap or shower gel vibe to it, which kind of leads me to my next point, is that like if this was an Hermes fragrance that Jean-Claude Ella made when he was at Hermes and it was 1/3 of the price, I'd be all over this, because the scent profile itself is really, really nice. It's a perfectly nice fragrance. It's not an Hermes fragrance at 1/3 of the price. This is a Frederic Malle fragrance that costs nearly £200, or £200 for 100ml. At the end of the day, this doesn't smell like a fragrance that costs £200. This, like I say, at an Hermes sort of price range, like 70, 80 retail, I'd be all over this. This is nice. It's pleasant. It's really nice. But at £200, no. Like, that leather needs to be lasting considerably longer. If it was for that, if that leather lasted, I probably would be more enticed by this, but it doesn't, and that's the long and the short of it, really. The rose as well, it doesn't last, and at the end of the day, you can gallivant London for 60, what is it, 60, 70 pound for 30ml, done. Like, if you that'll give you a fragrance that's roughly the same sort of thing. In fact, I would say more than roughly. I would say very much in the same ballpark, and it does it much better. So that would be my take on this fragrance. It's perfectly nice. I do like it. I didn't once feel like, oh, this fragrance is annoying me. It's bad. I don't like the smell of it. It smells great. It's lovely, but it's weak in its interest. And the bits that are left are not very nice. Or no, they are nice, but they don't do anything for me. I think like a muggle might, like, your average kind of muggle that doesn't really into fragrances, that they wouldn't mind this. I'm sure they would enjoy it. But like as someone who's like into your perfumes, this is gonna piss you off more than anything. Because it loses a lot of that interest like rapidly. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. I still recommend trying it, because it is really nice, and I definitely recommend giving it a go. If it was cheaper, and even if I could pick this up, if I found this at a good price, I would buy it, because it was nice. And I say, I'm quite picky on roses, so when I find a rose that I like, it means that it's probably pretty decent. But for me, I would no way near pay. I know some channels, they don't really like bringing price into things, but for me, it's unavoidable. I don't think it's right to talk about £200 fragrance as if it's like the bee's knees, if it's not. Like, frankly, if it's not worth £200, this for £200, this needs to be better than it is in terms of like the longevity of the interesting stuff. So yeah. Otherwise though, it is a nice fragrance, but it lacks in certain areas. That said, who do I think it's for? I mean, this is bang unisex. Anyone could wear this, literally anyone, any age. It is so versatile. It would suit anyone at any time of year. This is like 4-season, anyone, bang unisex, inoffensive, pleasant, nice. Anyone could, as a work scent, like, again, like if this was an Hermes at like £70-80 as a work scent, this would be really nice, especially in that spring and summer with that kind of greenness and all the rest of it. That would be lovely. But no, not at this price, sorry. So yeah, that's Rose Cuir by Frederic Malle. So my thoughts on it, sort of really, but a step up from a lot of the shit that's been pulled out of this box recently. So thumbs up for that one. Nice one. See you soon. Like, subscribe if you want. If you don't. Cheers. Thanks very much.